Hi guys, so today we're talking about exponent rules. We're going to go over a few different rules today, and then your homework's going to be kind of the same about just going over the rules for exponents. So first rule is the product rule, which states that when you multiply two values with the same base, you add exponents. Something that I like to say for the product rule is product is plus. It's kind of a good way to remember it. They both start with P's. So product is plus. If you see here, we have the same base, they're x's, and so we're going to add the exponents. So we have x to the fifth plus 3. So our answer here would be x to the eighth. And that's all you do. If you look at number 2, it's kind of different. It looks a little crazy. So you just need to find your bases that are the same. I have an a here, and if there's no exponent, your exponent is a 1. And then I have an a here. Well, 1 plus 2 is 3, so I have a to the third power. And then I'm going to look at my b's. I have a b here and a b here. And since there's no exponent with that b, I'm going to put a little 1 there. And now I'm just going to add. I have 1 plus 4 is 5, so b to the fifth. And that would be my answer for that one. So next up, we have the quotient rule, which is when you divide two values with the same base, you subtract exponents. What I like to say for this one is stack them, subtract them. So when they're stacked on top of each other, you're going to subtract the exponents. So if you look at number 3, we have x to the fifth over x to the third. That means that I'm going to do x 5 minus 3. 5 minus 3 is 2, so my answer is x squared. If you look at number 4, it looks a little bit differently. We have a 3 on top and a 5 on the bottom. We're still going to subtract the exponents, so I still want you to look at it as 5 minus 3. So our answer is still going to be x to the second. But what's tricky about this one, I'm going to zoom it in so you can see a little bit better. The x to the fifth is on the bottom. So that means there's more x's on the bottom, so we're going to keep our x's on the bottom. We're going to put a 1 on top, and our x squared is going to be on bottom. So if there's more x's on bottom, they stay on bottom. That's going to be our answer. Power rule. The power rule states that when you take a power to a power, you multiply the exponents. What I like to say for this one is raise high, multiply. So that what that means is you see how there's an exponent here, it's kind of raised higher than the other one. That means that you multiply the exponents. So this is really saying that we're going to do x 5 times 3, which means our answer is going to be x to the 15th power. Our next one is where it gets a little bit more tricky with raise, high, multiply. That's still what we're going to do, but we're going to raise product to a power. So that means that the exponent applies to everything inside the parentheses. So what I like to do is when you look at something like 6, that 4 technically has an exponent of 1. So we need to make sure that it gets there because the 2 is going to distribute to both the 1 for the 4 and the 3 for the x. So now my answer would be 4 squared because 2 times 1 is 2, and x to the 6th because 3 times 2 is 6. Now, sometimes they're going to say simplify, sometimes they're going to say evaluate. If they say simplify, that would be your answer, but a more simplified answer would actually be 4 squared is 16, x to the 6th. Okay, we're going to do something very similar for number 7. So remember, this 3, it's its own term, and it has an exponent of 1. So if you can't remember that, make sure you write that in there. We're going to distribute. Ooh, I almost forgot. Look at that b. That b doesn't have an exponent either, so make sure you put ones there if you can't remember. I'm going to distribute the 4, so the 4 goes to the 1, the 2, and the other one. So I have 3, 4 times 1 is 4. A, 2 times 4 is 8. B, 1 times 4 is 4. And this time I'm going to leave this. But remember, you could also do 3 to the 4th power. Okay, couple more. So this next one says quotient raised to a power. So the exponent applies to everything in the parentheses, the top and bottom of the fraction. So again, whenever you see a term that doesn't have an exponent, put a 1 there. The x has an exponent of 3. This 4 looks like it doesn't have an exponent, but it has an exponent of 1. So the 2 is going to be multiplied to the 3 and to the 1. So I'll have x on top. 3 times 2 is 6. 4 on bottom. 1 times 2 is 2. And remember, we can simplify. 4 squared is 16. Okay, the rest of them are pretty easy to remember. So when you have a negative exponents, they need to move. When you have a negative exponent, you actually technically can never have a negative exponent. So whenever you see something that has a negative exponent, it needs to flip. So if it's on top, it needs to go to the bottom. If it's on the bottom, it needs to go to the top. So if you look at number 9, we have 2x to the negative 5th. Remember, that 2 has an exponent of 1, and that 1 is positive. The only thing that has a negative exponent is x. So we're going to leave technically, I'm going to rewrite this. I have 2x to the negative 5th over 1. I'm going to take x to the negative 5th and I'm going to move it to the bottom. So my 2 stays on top and x to the positive 5th goes to the bottom. If we look at number 10, it's very similar. So I have a 2, remember, that has an exponent of 1, which is positive, but x to the negative 5th on bottom needs to move to the top to make it positive. I'm going to rewrite my 2 because that doesn't need to change. And I'm going to take my x and move it to the top so it has a positive exponent now. So that is my answer. Okay. 0 exponents are my favorite. So if you look, we have everything is in parentheses and it's all to the 0 power. Well, that means I would have to distribute the 0 to all the exponents. So now I would have 2 to the 0 power, x to the 0 power, and y to the 0 power. Well, what's great is that anything, any number in the world to the 0 power is 1. So this answer is 1. And that's it. If you put 3 million to the 0 power, you get 1. So anything to the 0 power is 1. 12 is where we try to trick you because the only thing that has a 0 power is x. So that 10 stays and that y stays. Remember, x to the 0 power turned to 1, but anything times 1 is just itself. So our answer is just going to be 10y. And that's it. If you guys have any questions, let us know.